Believe it or not, this guy actually has friends.
Nice.
This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Joining us now, good friend of the program. He covers BYU at KSLSports.com. Cougar Insider Mitch Harper, kind enough to join us. Mitch, how are you?
Doing good, Scotty. Happy to be on with you.
Well, you know what? I always love chatting with you because you're one of the best in the business, if not the best, especially when it comes to covering BYU. I do wish we were speaking under better circumstances, though, because these stories, I mean, look, you like to talk sports. We never really like when we have to talk news as being part of the sports world. But Parker Kingston, with the announcement yesterday, is and this BYU football team dealing with some stuff, kind of reset the scene and what you've learned lately.
Yeah, it's jarring stuff, Scotty, to say the least. And it's a bombshell for this for Parker Kingston and this BYU football program and the alleged victim here. Back in February 2025, Parker Kingston was alleged to have committed first-degree felony rape. He's been charged. He's booked. He's currently in jail. Court documents were unsealed today, and the alleged victim noted on February 27, 2025, she's 20 years old. She contacted officers in St. George at St. George Regional Hospital, reporting a sexual assault. On June 3rd, 2025, she was interviewed with Washington County Attorney's Office. And what's also interesting today is that it was noted in the unsealed documents is that Parker Kingston was interviewed. No date given in terms of when he was interviewed, but he was arrested yesterday. He's currently in jail. He's expected to go to court tomorrow. But again, first-degree felony rape. These are serious allegations. And, the last thing I think people think of in these sort of situations is football.
Yeah.
But it's intense stuff for Parker Kingston, the alleged victim involved here.
So this alleged incident took place last February. It's a year later. Was that just the process of gathering information and gathering evidence? Is why this has been a year apart?
That would be the expectation as far as, gathering the evidence here. It's been noted that based on the information that they gathered, they felt it was necessary to issue a warrant and, have the defendant, Parker Kingston, in this case, be faced with charges in this situation. So clearly taking their time, gathering that evidence and that information to press those charges. And he's currently in jail without bail right now.
Do you think that and BYU gave the correct response as you would expect? They're aware of the situation. They'll let the process go. However, their involvement in terms of discipline, that's going to be certainly a private issue. But do you think that there was any kind of knowledge whatsoever that Parker was dealing with something like this?
That's the big question here with the timeline spanning over a year and with the tidbit about him having an interview with authorities. Again, there was no date given on that. It makes you wonder if there was, in fact, knowledge of this. And, Parker Kingston, of course, was BYU's leading receiver this past season and, a top special teams guy as well in terms of the punt return game. The knowledge, really the only thing that BYU noted in their statement was that they became aware of the arrest yesterday. They didn't really tip their hand in terms of when they first became aware of this investigation. That's kind of important on these sort of situations is when was it known that this was being investigated? Because at a place like BYU that on top of a criminal court system or legal charges, and then there's the honor code too. And in these documents today, Parker Kingston in that interview, he claimed that the sexual activity was consensual. So he admits to, publicly admitting to, violating the school's honor code. And if there was knowledge of that investigation and whenever that date happened, that interview, again, it wasn't disclosed what that date was, that interview, that raises some questions for sure.
So you go back and Jake Retzloff, there were accusations made. That was later dropped, but because of the honor code violation, he ends up having to transfer. So, based on past history, based on that, he admitted that, yes, there was something that happened. It was consensual, at least according to him. It kind of, and I know I don't want to, this isn't about football. This is about much bigger things. But back to football a little bit, it does appear that probably Parker Kingston's career at BYU is probably done in some way, shape, or form.
No question. I mean, it's hard to imagine a path back from, this sort of thing. It's very difficult. And, because BYU with the honor code and everything that comes with that, I mean, it's hard to envision a path forward unless all of this gets completely cleared and Parker Kingston's name is cleared. He still violated the honor code. And at a minimum, that was 7 games for Jake Retzloff. And, that would be a lengthy suspension for BYU's top receiver. So it's hard to picture a scenario where we're seeing Parker Kingston part of this team, but the process plays out. And I will say that, the Jake Retzloff situation, that was a civil lawsuit, which was so kind of different. But I thought BYU handled that appropriately, and it ended up being, I think, a situation where I guess it could maybe had an ending where Retzloff still had an opportunity to play football, and he got to the playoff. BYU had its success, and people moved forward from that situation. This one feels it's a different level of intensity to all of this. I mean, all these allegations are always jarring and intense. This one, when again you're talking about Parker Kingston's in jail, and Jake Retzloff never faced that. I mean, after those initial allegations in that civil lawsuit, Jake Retzloff was still part of summer conditioning and going through workouts with BYU, whereas Kingston's in jail right now.
Yeah.
And that just adds another layer to all of that. And I mean, I've followed BYU football for a very long time. I don't recall many players over the years that I've been following the program where a guy that you knew was in jail is then running it back for in football on the field months later at a place like BYU. But we'll have to see on the timeline and let this due process play out.
Well, and that's the thing. Obviously, if he is guilty of what's being accused, he needs to go away for a long time, because in no way, shape, or form is that acceptable in any way. And so, yes, I mean, especially when you throw the first degree, the fact that it took a long time, which means you don't sit on something, you don't work on something for a year unless you've really got something. And so our thoughts certainly with the victim and the situation just is, man, your heart aches for the victim, for the family, and everybody else involved in this. Let's move on to something certainly a little bit more enjoyable to talk about. BYU in basketball gets the win over Baylor the other night. Do you feel like that there were some things fixed and that BYU's on a better path, or was it just the fact that they played a team that, frankly, wasn't particularly good?
I think that they did fix a little bit in terms of, I think that this team's getting a little bit more contributions from Kennard Davis in that game, and that was positive. Defensively, though, BYU still showing issues. They're giving up career highs to many guys, it feels like, every single night, and to give up 94 points to a Baylor team that was, pretty run-of-the-mill in the Big 12, that's a little bit concerning. And, BYU, all of their 6 wins in Big 12 play have come against teams that are either 9th or lower in the Big 12 standing. So they don't have a signature win, you could say, in Big 12 play yet. The opportunities are going to be in front of them, but they haven't beat the big dogs in the league yet. And so that's, I think, what's still kind of waiting to see that from BYU to really say things have turned the corner from that, 5 out of 6 game stretch where they lost those games from that period. But, I think that what we did learn, though, from that game, Scotty, is that BYU, the top end of this roster, will always be a tough out with anyone that they face. And to score 99 points when you only hit 3 3-pointers, it speaks to their firepower and their efficiency, particularly from that big 3 that, you get into March, you've got 3 guys that you can confidently know can get you a bucket, and that's sometimes half the battle in a postseason setting.
So Jimmer's being honored coming up this weekend. Does it feel like it's been, what are we, like 15 years now since Jimmer Mania?
That's right, 15 years, and he's
Wow.
kind of like a first ballot Hall of Famer in a way for BYU standards when it comes to jersey retirements. This is the earliest you can get your jersey in the rafters at BYU. You have to wait 15 years after your playing career is over, and right when the 15-year mark hit for Jimmer, Brian Santiago and BYU made that call and are getting him into the rafters, and well deserved. I mean, that guy was a legend in every sense of the word. I still kind of wonder I don't know if I would say he's the best BYU player of all time, because I still think that probably goes to Danny Ainge, but I think Jimmer created a generation of BYU basketball fans. I think before Jimmer, there were, BYU football fans, and yes, BYU fans showed up to basketball games, but it was nothing like it is now. And I think it all kind of traces back to that Jimmer mania, where people really invested into BYU basketball because, 30 years ago, they were the worst program in the country at 1-25, hit rock bottom. And then it was kind of brick by brick building it up after that point. And then they kind of culminated with Jimmer. And ever since, it's been, higher expectations, higher commitment to BYU basketball. And now you're seeing it at an even higher stage with Kevin Young and AJ DeBonsa. So Jimmer was, significant in terms of giving BYU the belief that they could, win big in college basketball, because for a long period of time before him, BYU was just a complete afterthought in terms of basketball. And he really revived, I think, the program and really created a generation of fans, I would say. So his impact will be felt for a very long time for BYU basketball.
Well, and that's the thing. When you have somebody who transcends Utah sports, and there was the Jimmer Mania was a national phenomenon. It just wasn't Utah, it wasn't just this area. It wasn't just an LDS thing. It was oh my gosh, this guy has taken over the sport in a period of time unlike anything we've ever seen. And I will still, to my grave, when I look at, the top 10 events that I've covered or seen live, that semifinal game against New Mexico, when that place was packed with BYU fans and Lobo fans, and Jimmer put on a show in Vegas at the Mountain West Conference Tournament, still probably, I've covered a lot of cool events. I've seen a lot of cool things. That's probably will always be in my top 10 and somewhere in that ranking.
That definitely was an all-timer. I mean, 52 points, and those Mountain West tournaments are always a big deal. They've always been, and that one was near the top. I mean, I even remember when in Jimmer's senior year, on the early days of Twitter, when the place was kind of fun, actually, Chad Ochocinco leading up to the BYU TCU game is saying, "Where can I find my boy Jimmer?" And that was a game on the mountain. I'm thinking, Chad Ochocinco's watching the mountain? Are you kidding me? Like, this is the reach of Jimmer Fredette. But yeah, Jimmer was, and that's the thing too, it was kind of like Bigfoot in a way, where he's this guy that's, dropping 40 footers, and he's on this channel called The Mountain and CSTV, so no one could see it. And it was just this Sports Center highlight, and it was still the early days of social media. It was kind of a unique time where he was at this intersection of new media kind of coming up in the early days, and then traditional media loved him. I mean, it was quite the ride for BYU basketball and for Jimmer, and might not ever see anything like it. Like, AJ DeBonsa has been, outstanding for BYU, but I still don't think it has like the reach, the phenomenon level of Jimmer. Like, AJ's better basketball player, but Jimmer was just something. I don't know how to even compare it. It was so unique and one of one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. AJ DeBonsa could go on a tear, and I mean, he already is on a tear, but it'll never match the fever of that run. And again, I think there were a lot of factors involved that played into it, but my goodness, that was just that was a hell of a run for sure. Hey, Mitch, you're the best, man. We appreciate it. Thanks for breaking things down for us. Again, great coverage of all things BYU at KSLSports.com. Hope you're well, my friend. Let's do it again soon.
Hey, thanks, Scotty. Appreciate it. Hope you're well as well, and talk again soon.
You got it. There he is, Mitch Harper, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, take a break. What you may have missed coming up next. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.